Friends, it is your friend in flowers, Lisa Mason Ziegler, coming to you. I am so happy to report on this rainy Wednesday. Friends, I just can't even express to you how much we have needed this rain. And it's been raining now since yesterday, pretty steady, not incredibly hard, but it's exactly what we needed. And so I'm pretty grateful for all of that. And I have a lot to talk to you about today. First off, these buckets of flowers. This is why I love fall. It's these kind of colors, right? Amazing celosias still just rolling out of the garden. And that is from the superpower of succession planting, friends. And if you haven't checked out my book, The Cut Flower Handbook, that is a big part of that book, is not only featuring like 66 flowers, of which more than half are cool flowers, but it's how you make that all work together to make the most out of your small space. And you can, of course, find the book at any bookseller, but when you purchase it from us, I sign it, plus we give you a PDF download of the flowers that didn't make the book. And I say that because, I mean, we are always in succession planting season, right? It doesn't matter where you are and what your region is. There's always something to plan, prepare, or be planting. And you just pick up where you are and run with that book, and it'll do it for you. And you can actually comment book here. And so I have some babies to show you. So, you know, we are knee deep in cool flowers around here. There are so many amazing trays of transplants. I brought two over here to show you. I wanted to bring them all. I wanted to actually take you in there, but the light's pretty terrible in there for this. But I just can't even tell you how exciting it is as a grower. Even 27 years in, I still get as excited about every stinking tray of seeds that sprout. It's like it's a miracle every time, and I don't even know how we did it, but let me just show you. So I brought two trays over here. The first one I want to show you is, this is Ammobium, which is a cool flower, if you didn't know that. And just look at, this is the 3/4 inch small blocker, which is what I use the lion's share of the time. I do use other size blockers. And with that being said, Friday's show, inside my app where we demonstrate stuff and show our harvest, I am demonstrating all 4 of the soil blockers. The small blocker, the large blocker, and the 2 commercial size Swift blockers, and what I use them for. But this is the Ammobium on these killer trays. This is 100 plants. They were sown in here. When were they sown? September 9th. I don't even know what today is. I am so knee deep in work, y'all. Whatever. These were sown on the 9th. They will grow in this block until they're planted out in the garden. It is such a labor saver, y'all. So this is Ammobium. And then look at this tray of snaps. We have like 8 trays of different snaps in there. This is Chantilly, and they are just absolutely amazing. You know, snaps were my first seed I ever started. And the first one I ever had wasn't the first one I ever started. It was the first one I ever had success with all those years ago when I discovered soil blocking. So this is 100 little plants that will grow in this block on this tray until it goes out to the garden in about 4 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks. These were sown on the 5th. So what is today really? Like the 18th? That's right, it's my nephew's birthday. So these are 13 days old. And I just had to share those. We have so many Rebecca's and Sweet Williams and Status, and oh my goodness. So if you need help with seed starting, with soil blocking, check out the show on Friday. We have a Q&A at the end, and be happy to do that. So if you're new here to Ask a Flower Farmer, this is the place where you can ask me questions. And I do my best to answer them, and I try to get to all of them. It doesn't always happen. And if you have a question about anything to do with flower farming, cool flowers, seed starting, flower farming business, selling flowers, all that kind of stuff, post it in the bubble down below, and that way I don't lose your question amongst all the comments, and all the people's names here in the comments. And So while we're waiting for some questions to get posted in there, so Cool Flowers, if you're not familiar, is, I feel like I talk about it all the time, y'all, but I mean, we have like touched a quarter of a quarter of a quarter of a quarter of 1% of the people in the gardening world, right? And so Cool Flowers is the name of a book that I wrote 10 years ago. Can't even believe it's been 10 years. And it's about the concept of how to plant cool season hardy annuals, because they're a little dicier than warm season annuals, but once you figure out your time to plant, which the book Cool Flowers and also the book, the Cut Flower Handbook, guides you through all of that. And once you figure that out, this is the best group of flowers ever, y'all. We're talking about Bells of Ireland. I'm just looking to see, it says we only have one question, so y'all get some questions in there. So if you have a question, post it in the bubble down below with the question mark in it so that I can get to it to answer it for you. So the cool season hardy annuals include those flowers like Bells of Ireland, sweet peas, snapdragons, Chinese forget-me-nots. I mean, I could go Lysianthus. All of them are cool season hardy annuals, and we all can plant them. We just plant them at different times. And if you are a southern gardener like I am, I'm in Virginia, I mean, many of those I thought I could never, ever plant, right? I mean, I thought because I lived in the South that I just could not even do that. And I was told that I couldn't grow certain things because of where we live, because of the heat and humidity. But that is not true. It's when you plant it is what makes it all possible. So cool season hardy annuals is where it's at. Many of us can plant a bunch of them in the fall, which is what I do. Here we plant about 40 different ones. And it will change your spring. This is the cash crops you can get from the field, because I have no hoop or greenhouses, right? Everything I do is outdoors in a garden. That's why I resonate with so many people. And it's super easy to apply for your growing region. And we kind of cover all of that in the book, the Cut Flower Handbook, as well as Flower Farming School. And friends, this is how you jumpstart your season. The highest demand season of the year is to grow cool flowers. So you got to add them. And, you just don't know what you don't know until you start growing this group of flowers. So I see I have questions now. So if you have questions, please post them in the bubble down below. I'm going to go over there now and get to them. How do you prep beds in fall in order to plant in early spring? I've missed the window for fall. Must I use plastic mulch, landscape fabric to prevent weeds, or can I leave it open and weed in the spring? What a great question. So Purpose Flower Company is asking, so there's two windows of opportunity. The most focused windows to plant cool season hardy annuals is in fall, for those people that those hardy annuals are hardy in your winter hardiness zone. The second window is what we call very early spring. And very early spring is like up to 6 to 8 weeks before your last spring frost. Well, the question they have is how do you prep those beds? Because in fact, you have to prep those beds now. You cannot wait until the very early spring window, because then for me, that's mid-February. We classically could even have snow on the ground then. The soil is certainly wet from the winter, right? So you prepare your beds now. Now there's several different ways that you can do that. It really depends on your style of farming and gardening. So what we do is literally when we haven't made our cool flower beds yet. Now that this rain has come, we're going to do it. We'll be prepping beds hopefully in about 10 days. We'll just make 2 or 3 extra beds, and those are going to be marked for very early spring planting. We do use the biodegradable film, and the reason I do is because that blocks the light and the water from getting to those beds over winter. It just kind of holds them there. And then when mid-February, for us, that's like Valentine's Day, right? In mid-February, sometimes if we have a little bit of snow on the ground on a warm, sunny afternoon, we can literally push with a push broom the snow off the beds. I remember we did this like 3 or 4 years ago with stock. Literally, we planted the stock into snow beds, covered beds that just had like an inch or two of snow on them. So that's one way. You can use just regular mulch like bark or shredded bark or something like that. But my problem with using organic mulches for this purpose is you have to put it really deep to have it truly prevent weed seeds from getting light. And that deep mulch is not conducive to young transplants. It often just, I'm fighting that in an area in our garden that mistakenly got mulched. It wasn't supposed to be, and it did. And it's a fight to keep the seedlings alive because the weather just shifts that stuff, right? So biodegradable film, I don't use landscape fabric on beds, so I can't speak to that. But I'll tell you another way that you can do it is you can prepare and make your beds finished, whatever that means, whether you're putting film on it or mulching it or whatever. And then you can lay a silage tarp. Silage tarp is super heavy duty, thick black plastic, and you just lay that down completely on the bed, and that does the same job that the film does, and then you can just pull that back. So that is it, kind of not in a nutshell, but that's what we do. On the kale crane series, will they be okay after a frost in the field? Mine are not ready and seem to be growing slow. Zone 8A, first frost November 15th. You're the same as me. Do they put on lots of top growth and then they get tall? First time growing them. I will say that growing, why didn't your question come up? There it is. She's talking about growing the ornamental kale, cut flower kale. That's the stuff that grows, you hope, really tall, right? It's not the easiest crop to grow, so don't be discouraged. I think I grew it like 2 or 3 years before I really figured it out and got good at it. I mean, I just didn't have as many as I thought I was going to have because I screwed it up so bad. So yes, to answer your question, yes, it takes frost, and in fact, you want frost to hit it. That's what makes it really color up for whatever color. I typically try, when I was growing for just flower farming sales, I almost always only grew the white and green. The other two colors, the pink and rose, they're like, that's not really very fall colors, right? So it just makes the color come out a whole lot more. So you should be fine. And what you want to be sure is that you really crowd them in. I put 8 plants wide in a 30-inch wide bed. That helps to encourage them to grow tall and straight. But more importantly, when they're tight like that, their stems stay small. If you space them out like every 6 inches or something like we do on many of our plants, the stem gets so thick, like thicker than my thumb, they aren't usable. The stems aren't. Nobody wants to work with them. So yes, you'll probably be fine, but just know this is an experiment, right? And don't be discouraged, and then next year you'll know better what to do. But I will say that, and then you have to protect them from the larva of the moth that's flying around that lays those little caterpillars. You can use BT of Dipel, D-I-P-E-L, which is the only pesticide when we did use them, because it's very targeted to just those that eat the leaves. Anyway, so I think you'll be fine. Your advice for sowing weekly sunflowers has been a godsend. So glad to hear that. I routinely sow pro cuts this year and would like to venture onto Vincent's choice. Do you have any recommendations for spacing and sowing timelines for Vincent? So I love Vincent too. And you know, my question to myself would be, why do I want to grow a different one? They look, to the people buying the flowers, they look basically the same. Vincent might be a few days quicker. The key is that if you sow it every week, it doesn't matter of the variety. As long as you sow that one variety every single week continuously, you'll always have sunflowers to cut. If you start like doing pro cuts this week and Vincent next week, that's when you get into trouble. What I love about the Vincents, and I learned about this from Jonathan Lease of Springforth Farm, is he pointed out that Vincent has more petals. which means if somebody chews on one of them, like a grasshopper or a beetle, you can literally pluck it off and it doesn't look like it's missing any petals. But it's beautiful. And there's just so many different sunflowers, but that's the thing that I ask myself. Why do I need to grow a different one? And and I have a person on my team, Jessie, who was actually the co-author on the Cut Flower Handbook. She's really teaching me to think that way. Whenever I want to do something different, do something new. So how's that different from what I'm already doing? We're always being drawn to do something different because we think it's going to be better, easier, make more money or something. But oftentimes, continuing to work what we're doing and doing it better will do the same thing. So Vincent is a great sunflower, but I would say to you that your commercial customers and your farmers market customers aren't really going to be able to tell the difference between a Vincent and a Pro Cut. I learned that when we were in full high production. We planted 1,200 sunflowers a week for 28 weeks, I think it was, I forget now. 28 weeks of the year. 1,200. I only planted one variety in one color, and that was Pro Cut Orange. Today, if I was doing that, I would do Horizon because it looks up. But what we found is we sold 1,200 sunflowers a week. We didn't have to have 10 different colors. We just had to have one color. And people loved it. So I love Pro Cut. I love Vincent's also, but they just aren't that different, right? And I'm glad that the weekly sunflowers have really helped. Is Cleome a cool flower? I do not know, because classically what we refer to as cool flowers are those flowers that are actually cut flowers, and Cleome is not a good cut flower for a lot of different reasons. So I can't answer that. I know it's a strong reseeder. I just don't know if it's a cool flower. So sorry, I can't answer that. When growing indoor cool flower seedlings, is the hardening off process in early springs, very cold weather, the same as it is for warm seasons at other times of the year, like short bursts to get longer over a week or so? Any tips? So first off, cold to cool is much easier for a plant, a cool season hardy annual plant, to sustain than a warm annual is to sustain heat and warmth. Heat is far more dangerous than cold is. And if a plant is cold hardy, meaning it survives your winter, it's not as traumatic as we tend to think it is, right? So you can do it that way. I tend to be of the nature of a lazy gardener farmer, is when I put my plants outside on my hardening off area, rarely, if ever, do they ever come back in, unless we're having a real wind event. And so we put ours outside. I try to time it. It's like, all right, if today's going to be, a warmish day, it's in the high 30s or whatever, I'll put them out in the morning when they're getting great sun. And, if it drops down super low at night, I might bring them back in. Or you could just actually rig up something to have a row cover over top of them. So it is different. I'm not as concerned about the cold. And then also something that I don't put in writing anywhere because people misconstrue it, but we actually harden off oftentimes our cool flowers out in the garden, meaning if we can plant the transplant straight out of the grow room into the garden and immediately the same day hoop and row cover them, that does the same thing. So it just really depends on your schedule. But you would never do that with warm season annuals, but cool season, you can do that. What do you use to kill cucumber beetles? They are destroying all of our flowers, and we are an organic farm. So we don't use anything in products, if that's what you're talking about. And cucumber beetles and flea beetles are all just really problemsome, especially if you're one of those folks that grow dahlias, which I don't grow dahlias anymore. If you're trying to grow dahlias, oftentimes we are attracting those bugs to our farm with some flower or plant that they're really attracted to. For instance, flea beetles, which looks like a cucumber beetle, but it has stripes instead of dots. Flea beetles are incredibly attracted to amaranth. Amaranth is a very beautiful cut flower. There's 14 different ones. I sell the seeds to all of them, and I've grown them. I grow them, and then I'm reminded why I shouldn't grow them, because we get inundated with beetles. So it's a bigger question, Lisa, than what do you use to kill them. It's like, why are they there is the big point, because again, anything you would use to kill cucumber beetles, which are not easy to kill even when you're a killer, it's going to kill everything else. It's going to kill all the beneficial stuff. So you have to think bigger. My book, Vegetables Love Flower, really, Vegetables Loves Flowers, is not about vegetables. It's about why flowers benefit vegetables, and it's really about attracting the good guys in, and how my gardening and farming philosophy of not using pesticides to really looking at the big picture. And I'm not a tree hugger. I am a tree hugger. I love trees, but I'm saying I'm not living in a la-la land. I'm in 27 years of flower farming. We don't use pesticides. We have near perfect blooms, and I have learned that it's not just about what's on the flowers, it's your environment, having natives and drawing in the birds. And I can't grow, there's several crops that you couldn't pay me to grow. I could sell them, but they attract pests that are big problems in my area. So I just don't grow them until you really restore the natural order of your garden. So that was a really long answer to your question. But anyway, so that's it. So you definitely need to jump on looking at your big picture if you're trying to be an organic farm. Can you use low cat tunnels for cool flowers and ranunculus in Connecticut Zone 6B? So first off, as a disclaimer, I don't grow ranunculus, so I cannot answer that at all. And yeah, I mean, when you say cat, I think you might be talking about caterpillar tunnels. And I don't use a caterpillar tunnel in my mind is a high hoop, not high like tall, but like maybe hip high, with row cover with plastic on top of it. And it's got the ropes going back and forth so you can adjust it up and down. I've never used those. We use low tunnels with lightweight row cover. Lightweight row cover allows light, water, and air to pass through at 85%, which means you don't all of a sudden stop all the rain getting through your row cover. So now all of a sudden you're responsible to water everything under that low tunnel. I'm still embracing the weather. We are just toning down the wind by using those lightweight low tunnels. But 6B, there's a lot of cool flowers you can fall plant. And certainly a lightweight row cover low tunnel benefits them, because not that they need cold protection if you grow the right ones for your zone, but it's the wind protection, so you're not beating up and whipping up those transplants that are sitting out there all winter. I mean, they look like little popsicles in January. It's just amazing when March and April roll around, all the sprouts that come up from around it, right? So I use row cover as an enhancement, not as a cold frame kind of concept. So I hope that helps you. Is hoop and row cover the only way to stop bunnies? Are bunnies more interested in baby plants than adult plants? So to answer the last part of your question, sure, we all love baby plants. I mean, that's why we love baby greens, baby lettuce. It's tenderer, and it's reachable, right, for bunnies. And so short of fencing them out, which takes quite an art, our electric portable deer fence that we use for cool flowers, I don't usually use it in the summertime, actually on the bottom has small holes, and that prevents the bunnies and the squirrels from getting in. And I didn't even realize that when we started using it, because the bunnies can hit us pretty hard here too. But again, back to encouraging, restoring your natural area, we encourage raptors, owls and hawks. I have perches on this farm that are just for them, up high where they can sit and shop, so that we can really help to control the rabbit and the squirrel and the rat and all the rodents can really be controlled by that. So fence and then row cover. I mean, that's what we use most often during summer, like for our sunflower seedlings we plant them and they have to be row covered. In fact, the ones that were planted 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks worth of sunflowers were planted and not covered, and guess what? I bet more than half of them are gone. And there's really, so you have to create a barrier. Row cover is the easiest. Hoops and row covers is the easiest, most cost-effective way to do that because it's very portable. You can move it to wherever you want to. Ellen, Zone 5, Shasta Daisy seeds, best way, street in winter, container in the ground or in the house over winter. So Ellen, Shasta daisies, where we are, it sounds like you're much colder, so this is not an issue with you. Shasta daisies are a crop that I can't grow here because of the pest drawing. They are a thrip magnet for us on our farm. So I don't grow Shasta daisies. I don't even like to say the name on my farm. Anyway, and I haven't grown them. I have no idea if you start them from seed or if that's a bare root thing. But if they're winter hardy in your zone, if they're a perennial where you are, you should be fall planting them and they should survive winter, assuming you get them in the ground before winter so they can become established, right? Which is about 6 to 8 weeks before your first frost date. So I can't answer the Shasta daisy thing except anybody down here where I am, that is one of the thrip magnets. Snapdragons are cool season hardy annuals, right? Correct? If so, only certain types, right? Can you comment, please? No. All snapdragons are cool season hardy annuals. I see people talking about this a lot on social media about how some seem hardier than others. And I used to think that back when I was first starting to grow them, but in fact it was my varied growing conditions, mostly the soil, that I was growing the different varieties in that really affected that. I grow them all. Chantilly, Madam Butterflies, Opus, I can't even think to name Rocket, Potomacs, and there's a Snappy Tongue, which is a crazy one, but it's got a great little ruffle on it. I find that they are all incredibly hard. I mean, they run the same. I plant them all, start them all in the fall. We plant them all at the same time, and because they are a member of different groups, which kind of tells you what day length time they're going to bloom next year, they kind of just create this great succession plan all by themselves because of the group that they're a member of. But I grow them all and plant them all at the same time, and you will, if you don't say where you are, if snaps are winter hardy in your winter hardiness zone, and I would say that if you're in zone 6, they might need a little bit of wind protection, but holy cow, the quality, the abundance of the stems and the disease and pest resistant of the fall planted ones makes it worth you jumping through any hoop you have to jump through. We get 48-inch snaps out in the field. We get 15 to 18 stems per plant occasionally, depending on the year. And they just keep on blooming right into heat and humidity because they're so well established. Until you grow cool flowers and are successful doing it, you just don't realize the quality of the benefits of doing it. And that's why, I'm screaming it from the rooftops. You just have to do it. And the Cut Flower Handbook really helps people go the journey of figuring out truly when you plant them. And then on the feature pages in that book, it tells you not the USDA zone, but actually the temperature, because we know the book goes all over the world. And so you've got to wrap your head around this. That was a third of our cash crop money for flower farming, was field planted for cool flowers. So good question. Do you sell Ammobium? Is it too late to sow for Zone 7, New Jersey? So yes, I have all the seeds and flowers you see me talk about. We also offer the seed. I don't save the seed. I just buy extra seed and we put our instructions on the seed packets. So yeah, you can find all that either at on our website, thegardenersworkshop.com, but I don't know if you knew this or not, we have a phone app that's got a garden shop on it. That's where I do a live shopping show every Friday. It's kind of like QVC, y'all, but it's me with my stuff. In that app, which is totally free to download, you can comment app here and we'll DM you the link. Inside that app, we offer free shipping on seed packet only orders, which means you can go in and order seeds whenever you need them and need them, and you don't pay shipping. So it's in both places. And when you actually plant in the fall and even in the spring, very early spring, is not based on your winter hardiness zone, it's your first frost date. And so Ammobium is one that should be transplanted. When you have transplants, it buys you time because you can hoop and cover planting a little bit later and kind of create a cozier environment. Hooping and covering with our lightweight row cover about buys you a month backwards. So if I hooped and covered today, I'd be like creating conditions similar to what was going on a month ago. So, you know, if you were zone 7, yeah, you saw a little mine are. I would say jump on it, but just know you're going to probably have to hoop and cover them when you plant them. That just allows them to have that warmth to be able to lay down good roots so they can go dormant over the winter. All right, y'all. I think I am, what is this? Jen, just starting out. Your books, Instagram, and podcasts are so helpful. How do I know which flowers to use support netting for? So we tell that in the Cut Flower Handbook on each feature page. It tells you whether or not I recommend it. As a general rule, it's pretty much everything is recommended to be netted with only a handful of a few. And you know what I tell people? You net the crops that are important to you, those that you need, those that you don't want to have risk going down. But like we don't net like Iceland poppies. They're kind of short, 18 inches, and they're super light on top, you know. But the Cut Flower Handbook tells you that on each and every featured flower. So friends, remember to meet me Friday inside the phone app, comment app, and we'll DM you the link, or you can just go to your phone's app store, search Gardener's Workshop. I do a live shop and show every Friday at noon. I feature what's going on the farm this week. I'll be soil blocking with all 4 of the soil blockers that we offer, as well as I'll be showing this week's harvest. That's what the show was born out of, right? Is I wanted to be able to show in real time, this is what we're cutting from our farm now. This is what it looks like. And you can buy the seeds. And we'll show you everything you need to grow them. So friends, until we meet again, I hope to see you on Friday inside the app. Totally free. Just go to your phone's app store or comment app here. Ciao.